Imagine waking up to a world where the sun never rises. Not for a day. Not for a week. But for an entire year. Crops fail, empires fall, and the sky above is a curtain of ash. This isn't a dystopian novel, it happened. And historians call it the worst year to be alive. Welcome to Infinity, where forgotten truths and untold mysteries are brought back to light. If you love stories that challenge history and open your mind to hidden worlds, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. The year was 536 AD, and something was terribly wrong with the world. Across Europe, the Middle East and Asia, people reported the same terrifying phenomenon. The sun had vanished behind a thick, unyielding haze. Byzantine historian Procopius wrote that the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, and that it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse. But this darkness didn't pass in minutes, it lasted for 18 months. Across continents, temperatures plummeted, snow fell in summer, and crops withered in the fields. It wasn't a regional event, it was global. The skies turned gray. The earth, it seemed, was mourning something colossal. In China, the summer harvest failed, and yellow dust fell from the sky. In Ireland, the annals report a failure of bread from the years 536 to 539. In Mesopotamia, chroniclers noted a dark sun and widespread famine. People thought it was the end of the world. In many cultures, the event was linked with divine punishment. Some believed the heavens were at war. Others feared demons or cosmic beasts had swallowed the sun. But what truly caused this planetary darkness? At the time, there was no understanding of climate or atmospheric science. The event became a myth, whispered, forgotten, buried in time. Modern historians and climatologists, however, have resurrected the mystery. And what they found shocked them. The year 536 wasn't just bad, it was the worst year in recorded human history. It marked the beginning of what's now known as the Late Antique Little Ice Age, a decade-long climatic catastrophe that reshaped the course of civilizations. But how could one year cause the downfall of empires, mass migrations, and centuries of suffering? To understand that, we need to trace the fingerprints of a disaster so massive, it left its mark in ice, earth, and legend. And it all started with a bang, one that the ancient world didn't hear, but everyone felt. For centuries, scholars speculated about the cause of the 536 darkness. But real answers didn't emerge until the late 20th and early 21st centuries, thanks to a surprising source: ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica. These ice cores act like time capsules, preserving the history of Earth's atmosphere layer by layer. When scientists examined the strata from 536 AD, they found something shocking: a massive spike in volcanic sulfate. The evidence pointed to a supervolcanic eruption, possibly somewhere in the northern hemisphere, that launched ash and aerosols into the stratosphere, creating a veil around the planet that blocked sunlight. The most likely suspect? A volcano in Iceland, or perhaps Ilopango in El Salvador, which had an eruption around this time large enough to match the global devastation. Other candidates include volcanoes in Alaska or the tropics. What made this eruption so catastrophic wasn't just its size, but its timing and aftermath. The initial blast blocked sunlight, but it also disrupted global climate patterns, causing droughts, floods, and famine. And the horror didn't stop there. In 540 AD, another massive eruption struck, amplifying the effects. This one-two punch created years of cold summers and food shortages, triggering social collapse in many regions. Crops failed in Europe. In Scandinavia, archaeological evidence shows entire villages were abandoned. In Central Asia, droughts weakened steppe civilizations, which had cascading effects on global migration patterns. The natural world, too, suffered. Tree rings from this era show minimal growth, confirming that sunlight levels dropped dramatically. Forests shriveled. Ecosystems collapsed. Starvation didn't discriminate. And while nature was reeling, so was society. Trade routes shrank. War escalated. People turned to religion, mysticism, and desperate explanations. Darkness breeds fear, and fear feeds chaos. But the true horror of 536 wasn't just the cold or the hunger. It was what came next. As if the world hadn't suffered enough, in 541 AD, a new terror emerged from the east, the plague of Justinian, one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. The plague, believed to be an early form of bubonic plague, hit the Eastern Roman Empire like a thunderclap. Carried by rats and fleas, it spread across the Mediterranean, killing an estimated 25 to 50 million people. Constantinople, the empire's shining capital, became a city of corpses. Procopius wrote that bodies were stacked in buildings and thrown into the sea. The living envied the dead. This pandemic wasn't caused by the volcanic winter, but the chain reaction is undeniable. A weakened population, malnourished from famine and chilled by climate collapse, became easy prey for disease. In many ways, 536 to 550 AD was the perfect storm: environmental catastrophe, social unrest, and biological annihilation. A trifecta of doom. And empires fell with it. The Western Roman Empire had already fractured, but the Eastern Roman, Byzantine Empire's ambitions were crushed. Rebuilding became impossible. In the East, Persia suffered similar chaos. In India and China, famines and political instability surged. In the Americas, massive demographic shifts began. Even as the skies cleared in the late 540s, the world was no longer the same. The psychological scar remained. Historians now see this period as the birth of the Middle Ages, a long, slow crawl out of darkness. But amid the ash and fear, something else emerged: legends. And those legends may still haunt our collective memory. Was this disaster recorded not just in history, but in mythology? What happens when a society faces total collapse, and has no science to explain it? Stories take root, and those stories last longer than facts. Across cultures, myths of a sunless age, cosmic battles, and sky-darkening dragons appear in texts and oral traditions. Could these be distorted memories of 536? In Norse mythology, Fimbulwinter is a great winter that precedes the end of the world. Sound familiar? It lasts 3 years, brings famine, and ushers in Ragnarok, the final battle. In Mayan records, there's mention of a long night where the sky gods battled and light disappeared. In India, Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, is marked by collapse and cosmic imbalance. These aren't random. They may be ancient societies processing real trauma through symbolic language, turning volcanic fallout and plague into battles between gods and demons. Even in the Bible, apocalyptic imagery of darkened skies, blood moons, and famine may stem in part from real disasters that imprinted themselves into human consciousness. And perhaps that's why we never fully forgot 536. Even if the year itself faded from popular memory, its psychological imprint was preserved in prophecy, religion, and archetype. The sun disappearing isn't just a natural event, it's the ultimate symbol of vulnerability. It reminds humanity how small, fragile, and utterly dependent we are on forces beyond our control. These myths are not lies. They're history, rewritten in metaphor. Truths, encoded in poetry. And now that we've decoded them, one question remains: could it happen again? Volcanic eruptions like 536 aren't relics of the past. They're ticking clocks, and Earth's crust is restless. In 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora caused the year without a summer. Snow fell in June. Famine spread. But Tambora was smaller than the 536 event. Today there are several supervolcanoes capable of producing similar or worse effects: Yellowstone, Toba, Campiflegrei, and Taupo. Each could change the global climate in weeks. Scientists classify these as VI7 or VI8 eruptions, ultramassive explosions that eject over 1,000 cubic kilometers of material. They occur every few thousand years. We are overdue. And unlike 536, today we have global supply chains, just-in-time agriculture, and a civilization dependent on fragile tech. A modern 536 could crash economies and starve billions. In fact, the U.S. Geological Survey has said that a Yellowstone eruption could render entire continents uninhabitable. Are we ready? Some governments run simulations. But most of the world sleeps under the illusion of stability, just like they did in 535. The truth is uncomfortable, but critical: we live on a temperamental planet. Civilization, for all its steel and satellites, is still at the mercy of a single plume of ash. But awareness is power. And learning from 536 isn't about fear, it's about resilience. Because history always repeats. But memory can save us. And that brings us to the final chapter: how humanity survived the darkest year. Join the Infinity Team. Like, subscribe, and share this video to keep truth alive. Drop a comment. What would you do if the sun vanished tomorrow? History isn't dead. It's buried. And we're here to unearth it, together.